Thanks, Dan. So let's look at that second core capability of observability with AI. You've already heard about the ways that AI is compressing the software development lifecycle, both through AI generated code being shipped faster with less supervision, and through AI agents acting directly in production. The question now is what that change means for how we practice observability and how we keep production reliable for our users. We're only just beginning to experience this new reality, but we can already see that it's going to challenge some of the assumptions that we've counted on over the past couple of decades. First, we assumed most failure modes would be caught in development and testing. And with those steps compressed, failures are increasingly surfacing first in production. In fact, across the industry, production incidents per approved pull request more than tripled in the past year. Second, we assumed production failures would produce explicit errors that we could catch and trace to a specific source. LLMs in production, they fail in novel ways. Prompt drift can cause gradual degradation rather than an obvious switch over into a failure mode. And some of the most serious real-life incidents we've seen, like a support agent that invented its own refund policy, don't throw any errors at all. To pick up on that quickly, you'd have to be looking at conversation traces or watching for an uptick in downstream support escalations. Third, we assumed we could fix failures by identifying some bug, patching it, and moving on. And that gets harder when a bad customer experience comes from an LLM or from an interaction between several of them. These are black box processes that you can't directly see into or fix. Changing a model or tuning a prompt may improve outcomes, but you won't know until you try it in production. And finally, maybe most scarily, we assumed that if we couldn't figure out a problem, we could always roll back to a known good deployment and figure out what went wrong on our own time in the safe space of development. With non-deterministic processes, compounding failures across services, model drift, there may not be an obvious safe state to roll back to. The only way out might be through. Take all of this together and what we need from observability is changing. Before the agentic era, a lot of observability and monitoring tools, they made a compromise. They focused on solving easy problems fast. Monitor standard metrics, alert ops, restart a service, bump up a memory allocation. The hard problems, we thought we could afford to solve slowly and offline. Roll back to yesterday's version, replicate the error in development, dig into logs, try fixes until we figured it out. Now at Honeycomb, we've always argued that wasn't good enough. And now that compromise is really starting to break down. Now we need to solve hard problems fast, and we need to do it while we're flying the plane. It's no longer a given that we can then restore a previous normal while we figure out what went wrong. What's more is that these problems don't always have a clean answer where we can say, hey, it's fixed. We need to try different solutions in the real world, which is to say in production, and see whether they actually improve outcomes. That's a different and harder discipline than tracking down a log, finding a bug, pushing a fix. The good news is this same shift that makes observability harder is also giving us new capabilities. Agents are now a part of the team running an investigation, and with the right infrastructure, they can do things a human responder just can't. The first is that they work with breadth. A human responder pulls 2, 3 suspect dimensions, service, region, status code. An agent can pivot on every attribute at once: build ID, model version, tenant, customer tier, feature flag, prompt template, and find the answers that show up in an unexpected place or across a combination of dimensions. Second is speed of iteration. The loop of hypothesis, query, result, new hypothesis is what eats a lot of the time in an investigation. An agent runs that loop at machine speed, and if you have high-definition telemetry, that loop stays tight because each query returns enough detail to inform the next step. So how do we harness that power to solve hard problems fast? And how is Honeycomb going to help? First, in a non-deterministic world, we can't assume we'll be able to replicate issues to diagnose them. We need to know everything that's happening in production, which is why more than ever, we need the wide event telemetry that Honeycomb has always delivered. That's what makes everything else work. Second, we need to surface those issues right away. At agent speed, every minute of head start counts. And because issues are often novel, we can't rely on triggers and SLOs alone. That's why we built anomaly detection. Third, we need to respond autonomously. A lot of the critical response work, running queries, forming hypotheses, testing them, can be automated, and it has to be. We can't wait for the first human to wake up before the investigation starts. So any trigger, SLO, or anomaly in Honeycomb can kick off an auto investigation. And finally, we need to work through complex problems together. We need a Google Docs for observability, a space where humans and agents work on the same problem, see the same data, share queries, show the evidence, build on each other's reasoning, and leave a trail the next responder can pick up. And that's what we've built the new canvas to be. So to show us what that looks like, I want to introduce Taylor Pratt from our product team to walk us through an investigation that we ran together earlier. Taylor, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kale. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So let's take a dive into the new canvas.
Yeah, so this is the new Canvas experience. It is a workspace where humans and agents investigate problems together. And this is where the investigation starts. So you can ask the agent a question directly or pick up where a teammate left off, or you can open an alert that triggered overnight. Just to quickly orient you, each investigation in a canvas, which is what this is, where evidence and findings accumulate. Everything on the canvas comes from a conversation, so either directly in the chat itself or in the canvas itself. Both of the surfaces are live, both update in real time, and both are part of the same investigation. But before I walk you through this investigation, I do want to show you a key piece of the foundation underneath it all, which is skills. Skills are how the agents reason. Canvas ships with a set of pre-built in skills so that the agent knows how to investigate the way an expert Honeycomb user would. And you can write your own too. Custom skills let you encode the runbook your team has perfected. So the order to check things, the platforms to watch for, that tribal knowledge that's usually trapped in someone's head. Each skill has a description that lets you tell the agent when to use it, or you can invoke it directly in the canvas itself. And that way, any agent in your organization investigates with your team's expertise. So as you can see, I created a custom skill here that's going to help guide the agent on how to investigate a checkout flow the same way that I would. And this is what makes the investigation that you're about to see possible. So let's jump back in there and take a look at it. All right, so yesterday afternoon, a trigger fired on a checkout latency. Auto investigation ended up kicking off automatically, and the agent was able to orient on the alert. It ran a structured plan and produced this complete summary over here. And by the time anyone sat down at their laptop, the agent had defined a hypothesis and even ranked potential contributing factors. But what you'll notice on this card is that throughout the investigation, the agent was updating itself. As I brought in new evidence, as other agents were contributing findings, the agent revised what was on this card. So the summary is the current understanding of what's happening and it's evolving in real time. And the agent actually reads the canvas too. So I drew on this heat map, I circled this slow band here, and I asked it to focus on what I had pointed at. The agent saw my circle and ended up scoping the work, and then it ran bubble up on that selection. So if you're not familiar with it, bubble up is one of Honeycomb's signature features. So you just point at a slice of data and it's going to tell you what's different about it versus the rest. And Canvas found two strong signals here. So first, it found a pod fingerprint identifying the misbehaving pod, and then also found a specific user dominating the slow requests. And it went from this circle to a triangulated finding all in one step.
Absolutely. And what we're not even seeing here is that, of course, with our wide events, we have hundreds of dimensions attached to these requests. And there are probably many more than these that are correlated. But rather than having to wade through all these and particularly to understand what they all mean, the agents pulled out the dimensions that are not only similar amongst those requests, but the ones that it particularly thinks are relevant and gives us our two suspects.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? It goes the other way too. So what I
Mm,
was able to do is pull up Query Builder in another tab and I scoped it tighter. I pasted the result back onto the canvas after that. And so that's what this
mm.
shape is here. And agents read pasted charts the same way it reads everything else. So that way you can bring the context the agent doesn't have and it picks up that context. And what I really like about this new experience is that the canvas becomes then where the humans and the agents share what they know with one another. And this is a big one here. As you can see, multiplayer is also a factor of this. Different humans, multiple agents, all using the same canvas. You ended up joining this investigation, and your agent could read everything that my agent and I had already done, and then they were sharing that context.
Absolutely. I didn't need you to catch me up manually what was going on. Everything that had happened so far was already there, all of the learnings that you'd made. So I was able to ask my own question on top of that, which is like, how long has this been going on?
Yeah, and what's really great about that is every investigation has a different timeline too. Some investigations, unfortunately, are going on for hours, and you might be joining one hours into it as a result of that. So you could even ask the agent to just summarize and catch you up on where things are at. And so your agent, as you were saying, ended up surfacing something mine hadn't investigated yet. So it was looking at how long this has been happening. And there were 8 pods, OOM killed and replaced in 7 different days. So then I asked my agent to reread the canvas given your agent's findings. And so if you watch what happens here, this is what's pretty cool. The original recommendation was that this was a P3. It ended up recommending that we restart the pod. And the revised recommendation that you see down here, it invalidates that entirely. Restarting the pod is not a fix, it's actually the symptom of what's going on. So it ended up recommending that we elevate the priority of this issue to a P2. So what I did next was I ran our custom checkout flow investigation skill. That's the one that I had showed you earlier to pressure test the action plan here. And it caught 2 more things that we missed. It flipped the diagnostic order from increasing the memory limit before profiling to profile first, limit second, and then fix it third. And so what's really cool about this is it's 2 agents reading each other's work and it's changing the priority of the fix. So a custom skill was then able to catch what the rest of us had missed. And that's what's working with this new canvas is like. And so as a final step here, what I ended up doing was just asking the agent to write up the incident summary, something that was ready to drop in Slack. So something that's full of context of everything that had been going on throughout this investigation. So the investigation itself, the evidence, the validation, that cross agent revision, and that's Canvas in a nutshell. It's a workspace where humans and agents work together. Skills that encode expertise once and apply on demand, auto investigation that runs while you sleep, living artifacts that evolve as the teams learn, and the canvas reads what humans draw. And what's important about that is because today teams are made up of both humans and agents, and Canvas is where they all meet and work together.
Absolutely. The thing I keep coming back to in this is like the way the investigation evolves. Both of our agents change their mind. They reprioritize based on new information. And that's going to get even more powerful as we automate bringing in external context like source code into this. And that's happening now, even with the GitHub integration that we're launching for Canvas, right?
Yeah, we're working on that plus other integrations as well. So all of that is just around the corner. And the more context we can add to this canvas and to the agents, the better it'll end up being because then they'll have all of the context of what's going on with your systems.
Taylor, thanks so much for showing us this.
Yeah, can't wait for everyone to try it.
So I want to take just 1 minute to note that what you're seeing here is made possible by the infrastructure that we've been building for the past decade. Honeycomb has always prioritized full fidelity through wide events, and those events are now powering in-depth investigations in a way that pre-aggregated data just can't. And we were built for exploring data, not for dashboards. So we've always prioritized query performance, which is now crucial for agentic investigations at scale. And we've prioritized freshness. Events are queryable in Honeycomb within 90 seconds. And as working directly with production gets more and more common, that's only going to be more critical. If your agent is telling you about your production environment half an hour ago, that may as well be last week. So it's important to remember as AI tools get more and more impressive, the fundamental things still apply.